Okay, I'm gonna do that again. Hello, everyone, and welcome to an extremely exciting special Essential Island Living team call. We know that we have some crossline friends with us here today as well. So welcome, everyone. We would love for you to pop in the chat who you are, where you're from, and also if you're not on the Central Island Living team, welcome, but please pop in the chat whose team you are on so that we can make all of our cross-line love connections. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Liza, and I am one of the founders of the Central Island Living team. And I gotta just put this out there that I am beyond excited and grateful for today's guest speaker. Kate Kanani and I were lucky enough a few years ago at a leadership retreat in San Diego to be sitting near this phenomenal woman who we didn't really know anybody at the time. And we have stayed connected over the years and so grateful. So I'm going to read her little bio, but before I do, I just want to say that Jessica is, one of the smartest people I know. Her passion for learning and educating about our oils and how they can support people it's just bar none. Nobody else, honestly, in my opinion, compares. I share her stuff all the time in our group, and you're going to all learn about other ways that you can connect with her and learn more from her. But seriously, just so heart-driven, learner-driven, and just offers so much value, education, the research to back it up, but also that practical knowledge and wherewithal for the typical, those of us that don't access at that higher scientific level. So but Jess just loves to make it make sense. She's a former nurse practitioner and ICU nurse for 15 years. She found her passion in the kind of healing that gets to the heart of things, which includes the brain of things. As an internal researcher, learner, and educator, in addition to calling to care, doTERRA was a perfect fit for her and helped her to bring it all together. Now she spends most of her time teaching people how to feel whole so they can help the people around them. So without further ado, please welcome Jessica Jacob Travis to our team call. Yay!
This is Jessica Travis.
Oh, okay.
Jessica, you know how on Facebook it's like you have your Facebook name?
Yeah.
It's funny because people will be like, Jessica Jacob Travis. I'm like, what? And I realized that I started that because that's my Facebook handle.
That is so funny. Even on our graphic for today, I'm like,
people, it happens all the time. It's so funny. So I don't even know if I should change it on Facebook at this point. It's over. Too late. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I feel the same way about you, Eliza. It was meant to be. When we met each other, we just kind of like magnets, or like and I was like, oh, you're special. I can just tell there's something special about you. She kind of scolded me about how I was teaching my daughter math, and I was discouraging her inadvertently because I was telling her, we used to learn math like this, and Eliza's like, are you encouraging her, or are you discouraging by the way you're talking about? I'm like, so it made me think about it, because I was like, yeah, that's not helpful if I'm pointing out what's wrong. And that's kind of a segue into everything we're going to talk about today, because really thinking about our essential oils, thinking about our brain. I think Eliza called this essential oils in the brain, something like that. So I'm hopeful that we can kind of do the gamut of talking about essential oils and the brain, which we could talk about for like 10 weeks, but also talking about what it means to have coherence in your brain and have your brain working in an integrated fashion, And no matter how many products and essential oils that we throw at our body and our system and our brain, if we're not doing those other things, then we could be wasting our money, our time, our customers' money, their time. And one thing I've seen is that a lot of people that are attracted to my education, I was stunned at the beginning. I did kind of a full course, like beginning to end, just how to turn your health around. And people that had been with doTERRA for 10 years weren't on lifelong vitality. I'm like, what? Or they had a collection of oils and they didn't know how to use them. Half of them were just sitting there because they wanted to have every oil, but they used a few all the time, and that's pretty much what they used. Or they had an oil that they used for one thing and had no idea that they could be doing so much more with that oil. So if you think about yourselves and you think about your customers, if we start to really help people understand, not just, I'm having a webinar tomorrow called Beyond the BOGO, not just about BOGOs and like hurrying up and buying all the oils because it's a good value, but using them to have practical results to actually get better, and not just, we all know the wellness pyramid, right? And it's there for a reason, because we tend to stay in that top Band-Aid level a lot of the time. It's just where, we come from, a lot of us come from Western medicine, where you're used to Band-Aiding things. Maybe some of you guys don't, but I did. And so in my background as a nurse practitioner, that's what we did. We did the Band-Aid thing. So in the last portion of my career as a nurse practitioner, I worked in neurology, and we specialized in MS and Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and strokes and all kinds of fun stuff. And but that's what we did. We would throw the end. We were working from the end, and we weren't working from the root. And if I could go back, and like, I wish I could go back in time, or just find all those people again and help them to work from the other direction, because we really do need to address that. So we're going to talk about oils. Of course, we're going to talk about oils, but we also need to, don't forget that pyramid, the pyramid. And even within that pyramid, a lot of times we'll start to just throw products in that pyramid. Okay, we're talking about nutrition, Terra greens. Okay, put the fiber in there. But it's not just doTERRA products in that pyramid. I'm not speaking sacrilegious here. doTERRA products are not the only thing that are going to help us. We need to understand that, because if you help your customers understand that, they'll know you care. The answer is not always going to be, oh, use this oil, use this doTERRA product. But guess what? Have you tried intermittent fasting? Have you thought about doing, a fasting mimicking diet? Things like that. So the person doesn't think, oh, she's just trying to sell me something. No, she actually cares, and she wants to see me get results. And there's other things that can help me. And the oils are obviously going to be part of that. Okay. So speaking of my career, I felt very frustrated because I felt limited in what we could do for people. And I don't know, do any of you guys ever feel like with your essential oil knowledge that you are maybe not as comfortable talking to someone who's maybe a healthcare professional or a scientist, somebody who's really, knows their stuff, and they want to tell you that it's a bunch of hocus pocus, or that there's no research to really back it up. And then maybe you sometimes feel frustrated because doTERRA, because of compliance regulations, they can't really tell you the real stuff. They know. If you ever get the chance to sit down and talk to Dr. Hill, they know, but they're not allowed to tell you, really, this is what you can do for Parkinson's or cancer or Alzheimer's. So that's the kind of stuff that I like to do. I'm going to kind of give you a glimpse of what I do. I take research, and guess what? I'm I'm done trying to hide it. We're going to talk about research. We're going to talk about real diagnoses, real symptoms, and real what you do. And let them get mad at us or whatever. But this is a private Zoom call, so we can do that. And I, like Eliza said later, I have a private group too, where we can kind of be free to talk like this, because I can't not talk like this. I can't say this supports your system, this is good for your skin, like every single oil, right? We know that. We want to know the nitty gritty. Okay, so we're talking about the brain. So I just want to show you a little bit, something that I wish I knew when I was in neurology. Share my screen here. Okay, so here's a research study, and don't worry if it's not easy for you to understand. I just want to tell you the title of it. It says neuroprotective and anti-aging potentials of essential oils from aromatic and medicinal plants. So that means if you scroll down, when you're looking at research studies, first of all, this is a well-reputed article. You want good research. You want research from reputable sources. PubMed is good, but you can look and see that this is a peer-reviewed study. Okay, so but when you say neuroprotective means protects the brain, and then it says anti-aging, so automatically you start to think of aging, cognitive function. Well, what do you think they're going to be talking about? They're going to be talking about Alzheimer's. So when you look at the abstract, one easy way to kind of glance at a research study is look at the abstract, and it'll kind of tell you what they found. And it talks about clinically important essential oils. And you can kind of, if you're starting to be able to read essential oils by their genus name, you'll see that you can pick out lavender, you can pick out eucalyptus, you can pick out peppermint, you can pick out rosemary, you can pick out jasmine, black pepper. So you can start to, and if you can't do that, then you can just cross search it in Google and find out which oils they were talking about. But this is really important to know that these essential oils have these properties. So this is a good study. And by the way, the studies that I'm sharing, I'll give you guys the studies. So you don't, if you want these studies later, you can have them. But what's really neat, and sorry, I don't want to make you dizzy. This talks about the fact that in Alzheimer's, there's something called acetylcholine and acetylcholine esterase. Cholinesterase is an enzyme. Acetylcholine gets degraded or broken down, and that's one of the problems. Also, the accumulation of these plaques. You probably heard of that in Alzheimer's, they get these plaques on their brain. Well, as just a side point, always remember Terrazyme for brain, remember Terrazyme for the brain, because the plaques, just like plaques in your heart and your blood vessels, we use Terrazyme to break down that. And if you didn't know that, Terrazyme breaks down plaques, especially if you take it on an empty stomach. So it does the same thing in your brain. So that was just a side point. But this is talking about essential oils, and it's talking about ones. Well, it shows you here, which is so neat. It shows you this little diagram, and it started to show you how certain medications work on Alzheimer's. But it's showing you how a neuron, and look, even shows you the site of the action of the essential oil, sorry, and how the essential oil acts to block that enzyme that breaks down the acetylcholine. So if you have that, in layman's terms, you're going to be able to treat Alzheimer's, Parkinson's with essential oils. And just so you know, most, if not all of the medications for Alzheimer's don't help at all. Like, they don't do anything but give people horrible side effects, and they're very expensive. So to have an essential oil that actually will do something and it doesn't have side effects is incredible. Okay, so right here it says, thus they are useful for the symptomatic management of Alzheimer's disease. That's a big deal. So it talks about some of the oils that we were talking about before. It also talks about cistus. So if you have those ancient oils, cistus was one of those. Is cistus available permanently now? I think it is. Can't remember. But that's another really, really good oil for the brain. And then it just goes on. I'm just kind of showing you guys what I do. In my group, what I do is we take research and we break it down to be practical. So if you're using, what I like to do with essential oils is pick out the essential oils that are known for supporting the brain. You don't need to use them all at once. I like to take one and I like to do what I call saturate. I like to use it all three ways. So aromatically, topically, and internally, to really just kind of flood my body or my system with that essential oil. And then I have another concept that's called, what is the concept that I call it? Pulsing. So I like to do like a 10 or 14-day course of whatever I'm doing, then take a break and reassess and see, is this helping? If we're just throwing oils and products at ourselves all the time, how do we know if something's helping? We have to stop and we have to look and we have to get very aware. So that's another thing you want to track. If you maybe were someone who's having cognitive difficulty, memory issues, you would want to be kind of keeping a little diary. Or if it's someone you're caretaking, notice. Are they remembering things better? Or maybe are they having a better time, less agitation, things like that after the 14 days. And then decide if you're going to continue with that one, try another one. But this is how you use studies like this, okay? How cool is this? There's a table that shows you all of the essential oils and their properties, and then it shows you here the parts that they were used, and then the results of the different enzymes and neurotransmitters in the brain that these essential oils, this is hard data that a doctor, a scientist would be like, wow, that's really cool. And just get it out of the way and tell the person that you're dealing with that you know that these studies are done in animals and that they're not done a lot of times in humans. And most of the time, if they are done on human cells, it's in a petri dish. So you know that. And you're not pretending like this study was done on live humans. You just get that out of the way. Like the takeaway, just say, I know that this study is on animals, so it's exciting. What this study shows is very exciting because if it can do this in an animal, I know that it's not going to hurt me, so I'm going to try it and see what it'll do for me. Okay. Also, it talks about myasthenia gravis. It talks about the anti-amyloid efficiency. I love these charts and graphs. But we'll move on so you guys don't get crazy with these. This one is just another one that gives you more essential oils that have that same anti-cholinesterase activity. So I already explained cholinesterase is that enzyme that breaks down what we want. We want acetylcholine. So if we block that with essential oil, you're going to block the progress and sometimes even reverse the symptoms of things like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's disease. So again, it's giving us essential oils. And scroll without making you too dizzy. But you can start to pick them out, like this one, Citrus aurantium. That's neroli. This is cypress. This is eucalyptus. This is that's fennel. This is thyme. Fennel, we just learned about a bunch, and fennel is incredibly powerful for your brain. So if you're wondering how you would take these essential oils or how you would use them, if they're labeled for topical use, use them topically. If they're labeled for internal use, use them internally. But like I said before, like to saturate. So if you're able to take it internally, then do so. If the label says not to, then I wouldn't do that. Okay, so let's just move on to another one that talks about how neat is this. Now we're moving on past Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. We're just talking about mood disorders. This is another brain area that people have a lot of issues with. Mood disorders. It's extremely common. The clinical depression criterion, there was, I think it was 9% of people met that criterion before COVID, and now it's at 24% in America. People meet the criterion for clinical depression, and that's like, that criterion is not just feeling sad some of the time, it's pretty severe. So to have a way to address that, again, without the side effects, we know what happens when you use anti-anxiety and antidepressants. After a while, they stop being effective. And we could explain why that is, but we don't have time right now. But they stop being effective, and so then they're increased, and then people get dependent on them, and it's just this vicious cycle. When you can have brain altering, mood disorder altering essential oils that work extremely well. And we know this, but this is neat to show a physician maybe that there's accumulating evidence that shows that they bypass the blood-brain barrier. It's not just frankincense. We used to always say frankincense bypasses the blood-brain barrier because that was the one that had been studied. But that's actually one of the larger molecules, essential oils. A lot of them are much smaller. So we can pretty much say that most essential oils are going to cross the blood-brain barrier, which is incredible. And so let's see. So someone's asking if all these are randomized and controlled. Not all of them. So you'll have to go through, you'll have all of the studies at the end and you can look through. But I picked studies that were in reputed, really good, like Nature, Frontiers. These are good studies. I didn't pick like the fluffy ones. Okay, so this one talks about, of course, it's going to talk about mood disorders. And then let me just get to, the figures. I love the figures. How cool is this? So this shows you again the figures. It shows you how the olfactory bulb. Wouldn't this be neat to show to someone who was maybe a doctor or a mental health, a therapist, psychiatrist, or just a science person? And you can show them this study and then you can show them this graph, and it just goes right in and shows you how, of course, we already know the olfactory bulb, the nerves, and then it's going to go to the limbic system. And here we are. Anxiety, depression, and what else? Sleep disorders, which are almost always because of one of these two. And it shows you how the essential oils work in the brain. And that's really nice to be able to show someone. This other figure is nice too, because this one takes, again, it takes the essential oils, lavender, Roman chamomile. So these are some of the ones they studied that are going to be powerful for mood disorders. Bergamot, melissa. And then there's a couple that doTERRA doesn't carry. Does that mean that you can't find this essential oil and use it from somewhere? No. But we carry, doTERRA carries the top ones, the ones that are on the top. So that's always good. And then it shows you what you would use them for. And it shows you how they act. Shows you that for bergamot, for example, it increases EEG activity. That means the brain waves. So it stimulates you. So if you have trouble with, well, actually, let's see, main indications, anxiety and sleep disorder. So the linalool is going to help with calming. Anytime you see linalool, you know that it's going to be calming. But when it says increases EEG activity, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to increase the beta or the excitable waves. It just means that it changed the activity. So that could mean that it increased delta or it increased theta waves. And those are the waves that you need to sleep. Those are the waves that are present when you're resting. And so this is important that someone can see a study was done on and in some of these cases, this study is actually a review. So in some of these studies were on humans, and they did do sleep studies, and they were able to see this. But just so neat for someone to be able to see, how does this work? You can compare these mechanisms of action to mechanisms in antidepressants. People that are on antidepressants know, oh yeah, mine is a SSRI, mine works on norepinephrine, mine is an MAOI. A lot of people will know what kind of antidepressant they're on. So it's kind of nice to be able to say, okay, these essential oils work on these mechanisms. So you can start to see a light at the end of the tunnel for someone who feels like there's no way they could ever get off of their antidepressant. This one talks about, again, it's changing EEG's patterns for sleep. So this says just by smelling, it's this enhanced slow wave EEG in the sleeping brain. So sleep is one of the most difficult things. I don't know if you guys have that. People are like, I cannot sleep. I'm on all of these different things. I've tried everything, and it's just not happening. I can't, or I go to sleep 2 hours later, I'm wide awake again. So it's really nice to, again, be able to show the data on how the essential oils work, but we're going to need to also back that up with lifestyle. If you are all day long thinking stressful thoughts, and you can't at 10 o'clock tell your brain, okay, stop now, we're gonna sleep. No, it doesn't work that way. Your brain's like, well, no, we're stressed, remember? So that, it's nice to have the oils. They're going to be a bridge, but we are going to need to show that care and concern for the people that we are helping, and show them that we're not selling them products, that we're going to help them get maybe a life raft, get them some sleep, get them some relief, and then we're going to help them make some lifestyle changes so that they can keep that change. Okay, I'm going to stop there for a second. Let's see what questions you guys have. Ray is in my group. She loves it. I love having you in there. Okay. Is Terrazyme for the brain because of blood sugar regulation, diabetes type 3? No, Terrazyme is actually able to break up, and like on the literal level, like it's munching up scar tissue, plaques. The way that it digests food and larger food particles is the same mechanism that it will digest and break down plaques. So the same, I don't know if you've ever seen you put it in the oatmeal and you see the oatmeal, and have you ever seen that little demonstration? That's Terrazyme is literally doing that. It's breaking down these plaques. The way that it would work, if you want it to work on your body this way, you want to use it in a fasted state. So if you're not familiar with fasting, Ray can get you familiar with it, because we talk about it all the time in the group. But fasting is one of the best things you can do for your brain. It is extremely well researched, and it shows all the anti-aging properties, blood sugar regulation, all of that. But the reason you want to take the Terrazyme on a fasted state is because when you take it with food, it's going to go to the low-hanging fruit, and it's going to go and munch away at the food that you just ate and help you metabolize that and help you to break that down. But if you allow your body to get through all of that, and I like to do the 16-8 at least fasting. So I stop eating, I don't eat any later than 8 p.m. And then I start eating at 12 noon the next day. So I have 16 hours of no eating. I'll have water, but no food for 16 hours. And then I eat between 12 and 8. So from 8 p.m. till 12 noon the next day, I don't eat, just water. The deepest part of my fast would be just before 12 noon, like right around 11 a.m. So if I take my Terrazyme then, that is the deepest part of my fast and the best time to take it, because I'm on empty, and that Terrazyme can go in there, and all it's going to do, it's completely not breaking down any food. it's going to go in and clean up and help with autophagy, which is the recycling and the cleaning up of my cells. And that's something our body naturally does, but we can enhance it with things like Terrazyme, and with bergamot is another one that enhances autophagy. Okay, so talked about that. All right, so this is all fine and good, but what I was talking about earlier is that we can do all of these things. Oh, and lifelong vitality too for the brain. You can't skip that. All of the wonderful ingredients in the lifelong vitality are so good for us. Is everybody here on lifelong vitality? I'm assuming most of you. Full dose? Okay, good. So I know there's usually a few people that aren't taking a full dose, and can usually start to convince everybody that you really need to be taking that full dose. When you see the research on the omega-3s and the alpha-lipoic acid and then acetyl L-carnitine and the ginkgo biloba, everything that's in, especially the alpha CRS, but also the omegas, it is so good for your brain. So good for your brain. We're not getting enough of that in our diet. We're depleted, and it is extremely good for our brain. So we're doing the lifelong vitality. We're using our oils. We have started to create these protocols. We saturate, we figure out, oh, wow, this is really helping. I can tell because I'm tracking. I can really tell that these oils are helping with my cognition, with my focus. And then, so I do 10 to 14 days. I reassess, say, okay, this is going to be part of my routine now. This is something that helps me. I personally might take breaks, and I like to confuse, or kind of like with exercise, I like to mix it up. I might use one oil for a little while, and then I'll switch to another one, and then I'll switch back to the other one, just to kind of keep my body guessing. And it's just more fun that way for me too. But yes, you want to expose your body to all different kinds of information. So that kind of leads me to the next phase. But literally what we're doing is giving our body information and giving our body instructions. We're giving, with the chemicals, with the essential oils, they're chemical messengers. So they're coming into your body and they're saying, they're not really talking, but they would be saying, okay, perform this function, increase acetylcholine, whatever it is, whatever that information is that it's telling your body to do. It's a chemical set of instructions. So the same thing is true of our thoughts and our emotions. And we tend to forget about that. And we hear it all the time, and we really need to manage your stress. You really need to focus on, keeping that at bay. But then we just want the essential oil protocol, or we want, what do I take? Tell me what to do. And then we hear, it'd probably be a good idea to sit quietly at least 10, 15 minutes a day. Just do some focused mental attention, just focus on your breathing, just give yourself something to think about, like gratitude, compassion, just 10, 15 minutes a day. You wouldn't believe how hard it is to get people to do that. It was so hard for me to do that. And I'll tell you what really helped me was I didn't feel like it was doing anything. So Ray will know this story. I was sitting and there was a meditation, and it was called heart gratitude, something about that. And I would sit there and it would get to the part where it said, okay, now feel grateful in your heart. And I would just be like, okay, I don't feel anything. Am I supposed to be feeling something? And intellectually, I would be like, I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful. I'm so grateful. I don't live in Ukraine. I'm not, my daughter wasn't in a school shooting. I mean, we're alive. I have so much to be grateful for. And intellectually, I'm thinking that, but I don't feel anything, nothing. And so I talked to so many people, and not only in that situation, but just in day-to-day life, they feel, you've heard the term dead inside. There's that term exists for a reason. People just feel like they're just numb. They're not truly experiencing life. They're just kind of existing. And on the surface, looks like, everything is going along well, happy, and they might even feel kind of happy. But then when they really try to evoke those deeper feelings, there's just nothing. And there's a reason for that. The reason is, which I discovered, and I have a happy ending to my story. I was able to just have this rush of gratitude that was amazing. That I was like, okay, that's what I was looking for with that meditation. But what happens is we think a lot of unconscious habitual thoughts, and most of them are negative. They're mostly thoughts that are just programmed and we don't even realize it, but they're like, there's not enough. I'm not enough. Just whatever thoughts that we have programmed, and they're predominantly negative, and they're just repetitive, and we don't realize that we're thinking them. But what that does is it's information, like those essential oils are information, and it exchanges with, we literally have energy centers in our body. And when I was looking at all the research for this, for the brain, what it has to do with the brain is they're like little mini brains, and they go up through our body. And they're called plexus. You've probably heard of your solar plexus in the middle. Some people have heard of the brachial plexus that's here, and that can get damaged, like in a car accident, that can get torn, cause some horrible problems. But there's a cardiac plexus. There's a thyroid plexus. There's bundles of nerves at each one of these points. And what happens is the lower three, and I'll show you. Okay, so the lower three down here, the solar, it's the superior mesenteric and the superior plexus. This one here is called the second brain, even. You probably heard that. The second brain, the stomach. This one is so chock full of nerve endings and cells. But there's that one, there's the heart plexus, thyroid, pineal, pituitary, and then this one we can talk about in a minute. But what happens is these lower three, let's see, energy gets stuck in them. And it gets stuck in them because the habitual thoughts and emotions are somewhere along these lines. So you see how we're just focusing on these three? So the bottom one, if you've had any of this in your life, a lot of energy will get stuck here, and literally there will be nothing above that. There will not be energy moving above that. When I talk about energy, it's information exchanging. And so you can do a whole lot of essential oils, supplements, and you're not going to get results up above. You're not going to feel, once you can get things moving to the heart, it just kind of, everything starts to get coherent. I like to describe it like thunderstorm. Like you see lightning in the clouds, and there's lightning here, there's lightning there, and there's some over here. And it's just not in harmony. And that's the way it is between our heart and our brain when energy is stuck in these lower three centers. Once you're able to kind of move it, it's like drums beating in harmony. It's like as if all of that lightning was happening in sync. But you can see the second center, guilt, shame. I mean, these are the things that everybody has. These are the repetitive thoughts. It's not just you, everyone has them. So if we can start moving energy past these three, that's when you start to feel it in your heart. And that's when you stop consuming energy. And from your heart, once you get it past the heart, you start to emit energy. So instead of just consuming and using and feeling heavy and depleted all the time, you're one of those people that walks around and people are like, you're glowing. It's like, I like to be around you. Every time I'm around you, I feel good. That's someone who's actually getting that energy moving. And the way that you can do that is by simple things like I was just talking about: sitting, breathing, focusing on those emotions like gratitude. But there is a process, and it has to do with identifying a lot of those unconscious thoughts that are causing you to be stuck in those first three centers. Though you at least need to know what they are, because if you're not, they're just going to keep repeating themselves. So you don't need to go back and rehash. You don't need to do 15 years of therapy. You just need to identify. So get aware of, I have the people that I work with every 2 hours set their alarm on their phone, and okay, what were you thinking just now? And how were you feeling just now? And they just make a note of it. And they, after a week, they look back and they're, oh my goodness, I keep having this thought every day at 2 o'clock. This is how I'm feeling. And every morning it's this dread. It's like Groundhog Day. Every single day, it's the same thing. And then they start saying, okay, that I don't need that. So then from that perspective, they can start to do some of the other practices that I teach. But that's important, because if we don't incorporate some of that, and doTERRA has really tried to focus on that with the adaptive line, and they came out with that app that didn't really get off the ground, but that was the reason. doTERRA is really trying to help us focus on those types of things, because they understand doTERRA does their research. It's just, like I said at the beginning, they're not able to really talk like this. They're not able to talk as freely as this, but the research is there. They know, and they're trying to help us with these products, because things like adaptive are going to help slow down that really fast beta brain that just wants to be in that hamster wheel. Slow it down, get aware, see what you're thinking, and from that point, then you can just slide into a practice, breathing, a practice of focused mental attention, and then do some of this work that I'm talking about with moving this energy. And it's literally moving it. It can literally move it, just like with the essential oils. And the essential oils are a really good tool to use. Now, the last few weeks, I've been just obsessed with juniper berry. And Ray probably could tell you again, in the group, we were talking about juniper berry. When I looked and did some research on juniper berry, I was like, oh, there's a study which showed that it slows down the sympathetic nervous system and it kicks on your parasympathetic nervous system. So no wonder I love to use juniper berry when I'm doing my 4-7-8 breathing, my calming breathing. And if I make a practice of doing that throughout the day, my entire day is different. Now, when you take your supplements and you use your oils, you have a channel, you have all of those areas that I just showed you, all of those different plexuses and those nerve bundles, they can exchange correct information instead of false information, which is all of those thoughts that we think constantly. So please, if you take anything away, do not discount that. Don't discount that that's a real thing. It's being researched more and more in the past. So a lot of times, because people assign religious rites with it, or rituals, or chakras, a lot of people steer away from it. But so because more and more research has been done, and we're putting science behind it and seeing that, no, these are nerve bundles. This is real. This is not, somebody didn't make this up, and this isn't magic. So if we can look at it scientifically, then we can start applying it and see real results. And I'm talking about, there's people that a few weeks after doing this are saying, I could not believe the way I feel. I have never felt like this in my life. So we all have that. And it's not that they've never felt that way. They just don't remember, because we all felt that way when we were babies, right? We don't remember it, but when we were little, we were all happy as can be, free as can be. Every morning we woke up and it was a new day. It was a new start. We forgot everything from the day before. No grudges, no beefs. It was a start over. That's how it's supposed to be now. That's really, we need that new information every single day. Okay, what kind of questions do you guys have? Bernice is like, this is deeper into energy. Yep. No, I was going to talk about that. Okay, the importance of taking a full dose, Lisa says. Well, first, Honora asked about a 13-year-old girl. So it's more about the weight than the age. So, because my daughter's 11 and she is the size of, like, she's 5'7", and you know, she wears a woman's size 10 shoe. So she takes full dose. So, but she's 11. 13, she's got friends that are 13 that are tiny, that I would not give a full dose. So it's more about the weight. So if that 13-year-old girl has already been taking lifelong vitality, then if it was my 13-year-old, based on her size, I would just work her up to where she's feeling comfortable. And if she's at least 100 pounds, then you can start inching her towards the full dose. And then can you speak to the importance of taking a full dose? Yes. doTERRA errs on the side of being cautious. They never make their supplements like max dose. If you've noticed that on our turmeric, even on the adaptive, people would ask after I did that one adaptive video that everybody was like, oh my goodness. That's a question people kept asking. Is it okay to give adaptive to a kid? Is that going to be safe? The amount of GABA that's in adaptive is so low compared to other GABA. The amount of GABA in adaptive is so low compared to some other supplements that kids are given all the time. Kids are given 1,000 milligrams. There's 100 milligrams in one. So when you see our supplements, just know that doTERRA is never going to this side of the needle. They're always going to be here, not even right in the middle. They're going to be a little bit under. So if you're taking a half dose of the lifelong vitality, you're definitely not getting your full nutrition unless you are really small and just really, really sensitive. You need a full dose, because the amounts, even if you look at the recommended daily doses that are on the lifelong vitality, none of them are excessive. It's all well within. And we know that most of us have some level of leaky gut. We're not getting that intestinal barrier and integrity. It's just not there for most of us. So we all need to take more than less. And the full dose is at least, I know people that take extra of some of the, like the omegas, or they'll take extra of the alpha CRS sometimes, but at least the full dose. Okay, are there other questions about the brain that you guys were hoping to hear about? Any burning questions? I don't know how you guys work it. If you want to just put it in the chat or unmute. Know how strict Eliza might be pretty strict on it.
I am not strict at all. So please,
Okay.
if you have any.
So Bernice just asked about specific for dementia. We started out with that. We started out talking about, I don't know if you were here at the beginning, Bernice, but if not, you'll want to go back to the very beginning, because that was the very first study that we talked about. Now we think about frankincense, and I did a video on frankincense and myrrh. There's that study, frankincense and myrrh together are synergistic. So I always use frankincense and myrrh together. I call it franken myrrh. everybody thinks about frankincense for the brain. That's just kind of like brain frankincense. And it's true. So that is kind of a stock dementia, use frankincense all the time. But that first study that I shared might be surprising to you, that some of those oils you may not, or fennel, who knew? Fennel and cistus are powerful for the brain, for cognitive impairment. Another one, I'm trying to think, it was petitgrain we were talking about the other day. But the more you learn about these oils, that's why I really encourage you to learn more about your oils. Don't just have them sitting on the shelf. What specifically are you asking about vagus or trigeminal nerves? So vagus nerve, it's called that because in Latin it means wandering. It's this nerve that goes from your brain all the way down to where you go, number 2. It is the longest nerve in your body, and it's responsible for inducing that parasympathetic response. And if you bear down like you're gonna have a bowel movement, you can get your vagus nerve triggered. And
I have a mouth tingling coolness sensation in my mouth, so I'm wondering if it's due to the vagus or trigeminal nerve. I've had it for about a year.
Oh, okay. So just because I'm in neurology, your mouth, that is the hypoglossal nerve. I just happen to know that because I know the cranial nerves by heart. But that's a totally different nerve. The nice thing is you don't have to know exactly what nerve. Do you have to know? No, you don't have to know. You just need to know which essential oils are nervine, tonic, which ones calm your nerves, which ones relax and soothe your nerves. And petitgrain happens to be one of those. I remember doing a video on petitgrain, but also the ones that we're familiar with: helichrysum, frankincense, copaiba. Those just come to mind right away to soothe and as a nervine tonic. So if you're feeling that in your mouth, you can even look and grab a diagram of what your cranial nerves and which ones innervate where. But you don't have to do that. You can just apply the essential oil to the back of your head. So I always, this right here where you, like if you had a cliffhanger, I always call it cliffhanger because I have like the hook in the back of my head, but this is your occipital region. This is a really good place to apply essential oils to affect all of the cranial nerves, because everything has to kind of pass through there, and there's a big bundle. You can kind of press and feel. Sometimes it feels tender when you have a headache, but that's a really good place to apply essential oils for your brain and for all of the nerves, your cranial nerves. And then by managing our new mood, state of mind, does it produce natural chemical? Yes, absolutely. So we have the natural pharmacy, Josephine, in our body. It's called, it's called an endogenous analog. It just means that for any drug you take, your body can produce that same chemical, or else that drug wouldn't be able to hook onto a receptor in your body and make something happen. So you can make anything that you can take, you can make. It's really cool. So by managing our moods, yes, by breathing, by moving energy, by taking a cold shower. Taking a cold shower gives you a boost in norepinephrine, just like Cymbalta or Effexor. Those antidepressants, they work on norepinephrine. Guess what? Taking a cold shower does the exact same thing. So yes, anything that a drug can do, you can do. Yep, copaiba and Frank work with any issues in the mouth. So Kanani, see, that just what we're on the same page, right? And the nice thing is you can swish inside your mouth, and you can apply them to the back. Remember what I said about saturating, use them all 3 ways if possible. Do you guys have any other questions about the brain? Stroke of thoughts. So that's Leilani, that's a little bit of a tricky place to go. When you have a clot, or number one, you could be on a blood thinner or not. I don't know if this person is or you are. But does everybody have a good reference book? Which one do you guys like to use on this team? Do you guys use the Modern Essentials? Or what do you use? I love the Modern Essentials. And it's just my favorite because I have a lot of research. I mean, look how thick this book is. It's so thick. Okay, real quick to answer the Terrazyme. When I'm on my deep fast, I take 3 Terrazyme in the 15th hour to answer that question. But the nice thing about this book is it has a page that tells you all of the oils that interact with blood thinners and medications that impact your blood sugar. So that's why I love this book. So if you don't have a Modern Essentials book, I highly recommend getting one because it gives you a graph that talks about which ones to avoid. But it's usually, you're asking what to take or what to avoid. Yeah, so with stroke and clots,
Sorry, basically what to take.
So what to take, so this person is trying to thin their blood, basically. I was like, yeah.
Prevent more clots in the brain.
So the ones that are thinning are usually the ones that are like the hot ones, like cinnamon, clove. The thing is, if this person, is the person on a blood thinner?
No, just on statins.
Okay. So yeah, like a rule of thumb, frankincense every time. It's just so good as far as an anti-inflammatory. But for me, if that was me personally, I would do something like On Guard because it has clove and cinnamon in it, and that is going to be both of those are anticoagulant properties. But again, this book is amazing. So traumatic brain injury and moods, we had a study on moods. So go back, I'm going to give you guys the studies on moods. Go back and look at those studies that I showed you guys in the beginning, because it showed you a list of what oil for what mood and exactly what it does, which is so helpful. I'm going to put the link here for anyone that wants to learn more. Just going to put it in the chat. I have all kinds of ways to learn more with me. I have a group. I do coaching. I also am doing a webinar tomorrow, 10 a.m. to just tell more about the group. But in the group, we do this kind of stuff. Every week we do a deep dive, and we either do a topic like this or we do a product. And then every Friday we do a Q&A where like I just did, I just answer all of the questions live on Friday evening. So it's fun in there. We have lots of fun and we get to go deep. You're so welcome, Leilani. So I'm wondering if I need to give you guys the studies. How should I get you the studies, Liza?
I think just email me. I'll put it in the our message on Messenger, and you can email it to me, and then I can get it out. And if you are not on our part of our community, but want those, just well, I'll put my email here for everyone. And I will get you that, and also we can share the recording of this call. So Jessica, thank you so much. I just got into Jessica's group just about a week or two ago, and I've done some of her other trainings, and I've shared a bunch of her stuff. You guys, if you are a learner and you want to really deep dive, this is where it's at. So I really encourage you to go check out that group. And I just want to give you a big mahalo and thank you for spending your time with us. We had like several time difference miscommunications. I Jess was in California. She's actually in Colorado. She logged in. I'm like, girl, it's not for another hour. So thank you so much, because now it's 9 o'clock at night for you. And we're just so grateful for your time, your knowledge, your expertise, and your willingness to share with us tonight. We're so honored and blessed to know you and grateful for all you have to share. So thank you so much. Any last words?
I'm putting the link for the webinar. Someone was asking about tomorrow's webinar. It's at 10 o'clock. So I just put the link to register for it right there. And I just hope you guys, if there's any takeaway, it's, it's everything. It's not just collecting the oils. It's not, you don't want to do that for your customers either. It's not sustainable, right? Because people are going to burn out on buying a bunch of oils if they're not using them and getting the results. But if we can help them create a regimen, something that's working really well for them, that they're doing consistently, they'll be with you for life. But even better than that, they're going to change their life. They're going to get change, and that's what we're here for. So hopefully that's something that can inspire tonight.
I love that. I know that I started taking cold showers because of you. So yeah, thank you so much. And some people are sharing their takeaways as well, taking a full dose of LLV. I love this part. This is one of my big ones. Your body can make what drugs do if you can learn how to access that and meditate and evoke those feelings of gratitude. So I'm excited to dig deeper into that. And then I know that you've talked a lot. I've heard you talk a lot in the past about fasting.
Oh yeah.
And how that's had a big impact on you. So thank you so much. I'm just I'll hang out for about another minute after we end so that you guys can grab those links for the webinar and for Jessica's group. And then if you want to just send those to me a messenger, I can plug those into our group along with the recording of this call and get that out to more people that couldn't make it. Oh, Kanan had a good question. When you said 10 a.m., is that Mountain Standard Time?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so that would, which actually, you guys, works for a lot of us because we're up and getting ready. So you don't have to turn on your cameras, but you could listen.
Yeah. And if you register, then you'll get the recording. So it's basically we're gonna feature common myrtle, which is not so common, and people know nothing about common myrtle. So I just went on a deep dive, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this amazing oil. It's another amazing one. they're all
amazing. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. We're looking forward to seeing you again really soon. And if there's anything that our community can ever do for you, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks for joining us tonight, everybody, on this super special team call. So grateful for all of you. Have a great night.
All right.
Bye.
Mahalo.
Mahalo.